Ancient images created on rock and stone surfaces are called rock art. It is found on all human-inhabited continents in the world. There is also plenty of rock art in phenogric areas from Siberia to Scandinavia. The rock paintings have been applied to the rock surfaces with some dye, for instance ochre. The sites closest to Estonia are in Finland. Rock carvings or petroglyphs have been deepened into the rock surface by carving, pecking, cutting or polishing. Estonians are more widely aware of the Stone Age petroglyphs in eastern Karelia. Particular interest has been shown in those of Lake Onega. The Estonian Society of Prehistoric Art has conducted the research and promotion of Lake Onega rock carvings for more than 40 years. To get from Estonia to the Lake Onega rock art sites, you first have to take a bus or a train to St. Petersburg and then to Petrozavodsk, the capital of the Karelian Republic.
Привет, Тарту. До Тарту вот не доехать нам никак. В Таллине, видишь.
Se rauhalanteen luoma on kivi vähän vittu suussa.
At these stops, you can already get acquainted with the petroglyphs of Lake Onega in St. Petersburg Hermitage as well as in the Karelian National Museum. In both, they are exhibited on pieces broken or separated from the coastal bedrock.
Пойдем туда.
From Petrozavodsk, you have to take a boat trip of about 100 kilometers to the eastern shore of Lake Onega to the port of Shala on the banks of the Vodla River. From Shala, the easiest way to get to the main rock deposits of the Vodla region on Cape Swan and Kochkovo is by boat, but you can also walk there along a path of about 4 kilometers. However, to reach the rock art of the Bisavnos region, you have to undertake a longer journey, about 16 kilometers, either on foot or by boat. The hike can last for quite a long time, a third along a sandy beach, then a third through a wooded landscape and finally a third along forest tracks. However, discoveries await you on arrival on the promontories and islets of the approximately 6 kilometers long lakeshore. Exciting material can be seen at nearly 20 rock carving sites. The petroglyphs of Lake Onega were made in the Neolithic age more than 6,000 years ago. The dating of the rock carvings to the Stone Age is confirmed primarily by on-site archaeological and other investigations, finds, and reconstructions based on them, which also allow us to get an idea of the petroglyphs' creators' lifestyle. Living was made by fishing, hunting, and gathering. The hunter's helper was the dog. Ceramic vessels played an important role in the preparation and preservation of food. Their rich decor gives an idea of the maker's sense of beauty. The clay blanks were burned in the fire until strong and durable. Nothing, however, remains of the people who made them but fingerprints preserved on the inner surface of the vessels. With the help of a bow drill, hot coal dust was obtained, which was used to ignite dry material. This, in turn, was used to light fires for cooking, burning of ceramics, and for heating of dwellings. For clothing, textile woven of vegetable fibers and leather obtained during hunting were used. The materials of the tools were stone, wood, and bone. They could also be used to make jewelry. Lake Onega Stone Age people's worldview, beliefs, and way of life are reflected in various images on the rocks. Nowadays, however, these images are somewhat difficult to understand. But while seeing the petroglyphs, the mythological charge associated with people's mindset 6 millennia ago still becomes perceptible and offers excitement. In order to delve deeper into it, it is necessary to get acquainted with the entire petroglyph territory. In total, over 1,500 individual carvings are known from Lake Onega. All of them have been hammered into the almost horizontal surfaces of the granite bedrock close to the water edge. It was difficult to make these with the Stone Age tools, and therefore, the images are barely a few millimeters deep and are best visible in the light falling sideways along the rock surface. The carvings have been lowered over time by the effects of water and ice and erosion caused by lichen growth. The ancient depictions are most clearly distinguishable in the copies made in the rubbing or frottage technique and in the graphic images created by computer processing of photographs. The carvings mostly depict various signs: waterfowl, animals, humans, and boats. With the exception of 2 modest tree images, the material does not at all reflect other plants or the surrounding environment. The largest number, about 42%, are waterfowl-like images, most of which resemble swans. In addition to realistic ones, they include birds with unnaturally long necks, unusual appendages and striped bodies, and twin bird symbols. The next most numerous group, 13%, is made up of lunar and solar signs or astromorphs. The main shape of these carvings resembles a full moon, the sun, or a crescent moon, which usually has two line-like additions. Astromorphs have been interpreted as traps, cosmic symbols, and calendar marks. Of the other symbol-like carvings, the staffs with a triangular top deserve special attention. Of animal-like or zoomorphic images, elk depictions account for 8% of the total number of petroglyphs. Without exception, all elk-like animals are antlerless. Antlers are missing even on the elk-headed appendages of boat stems and staffs. Other animals are depicted in 4% of cases. Anthropomorphic petroglyphs account for 7% of the images, about half of them in the side view and half in the front view. They are often depicted in a dancing pose, as hybrids with mammals or birds, or even with a tree. The calf muscles are emphasized. Sometimes the human images have 3 fingers. The best-known drawing of the rock art of Lake Onega is completely unique, a 2.5-meter anthropomorph carved on the western site, a bisavnos. It has 5 fingers, relatively thin limbs, a square body and head. Human-like images have been interpreted as mythological heroes, totemic ancestors, and shamans. 5% of the rock carvings are boat-like, the stem of which is usually decorated with an elk head. The vertical dashes in them represent people. About half of the boats are empty. The boat images have been interpreted as vessels carrying the souls of the dead. Unique petroglyphs account for about 2%. Their most interesting representative is the so-called Miracle Mill from the northern side of Cape Swan. There are clear similarities in the motifs and styles of the carvings at different sites, but there are also discrepancies. Without exception, waterfowl are represented at all sites. Their share is the largest, 63%, on the rocks of the Vadla region. In the Bisavnos region, the distribution of motifs is more diverse. At the same time, there are quite large differences between several sites in this region. For example, there are no sun-like and moon-like images on the western side of Bisavnos, although all other types of carvings are represented. Some of the petroglyphs of this and Cape Perry sites also depict activities with mythological features. The territory of the petroglyphs stretches over a shoreline of about 25 kilometers and is divided into 2 major parts, the northern Vadla region and the southern Bisavnos region. All sites are located close to water on the tips of rocky capes and on coastal islands. The Vodla region consists of 3 clusters with a total of 6 sites. 3 on Cape Swan, 2 in the mouth of the Vodla River, and 1 on the Bolshoi Golets Island. Presumably, the petroglyphs of the Vodla region represent the youngest formation in the petroglyph territory. Cape Swan rock carvings were discovered by Kudi Payupu and Pilvi Clausen during the 1986 expedition of the Estonian Society of Prehistoric Art. Approximately 200 individual depictions are known from the 3 sites on Cape Swan. They are characterized by an abundance of large and very large swan images. The size of the largest figure from tail to beak exceeds 4 meters, and it is also the largest petroglyph of Karelian rock art. The Kochkovo site is located at the mouth of the Vodla River on the bedrock of the right bank. Swan-like images dominate there as well. A total of 140 petroglyphs have been found in Kochkovo. Unfortunately, they are very poorly visible. The Bisavnos region has a total of 19 sites in 6 clusters. 1 at Cape Koretsky, 7 at Cape Perry, 3 at Cape Bisavnos, 4 at Cape Kladovets and at the mouth of the Kornea River, 1 at Cape Gotsi and 3 sites on the Guri Islands. Judging by the variety of carving motifs, the drawings of this region were probably created before those of the Vodla region. More than 230 individual petroglyphs have been found on the rocks of Koretsky, most of which are poorly visible. Throughout the rock art territory, they are distinguished by a large difference in height and diversity. A special feature is also the abundance of solar and lunar signs. There, the number of signs is almost equal to the number of waterfowl images. Perry is divided into 7 smaller capelets and 1 islet near the coast. The concentration of carvings here is the highest in the entire territory, a total of 610 individual petroglyphs, about 100 of which were transported on boulders to the Hermitage in St. Petersburg and the Petrozavodsk Museum. About a third of the petroglyphs are waterfowl images and more than a fifth are astral, lunar and solar signs. Some of Perry's carvings have been found quite recently on rock fragments that have once been broken away from the bedrock by the ice breaking in spring and pushed away from their original location to the edge of the forest. The northern side of Bisavnos is relatively modest in terms of the number of depictions. Only 40 images are known, but due to their uniqueness, they have been widely reflected in literature and used as illustrations. The best-known image is of a striped long-necked swan over a meter long, which has been interpreted as the ancient inhabitants' idea of the universe. It has been adopted as a logo by the Finno-Ugric Foundation, which studies Finno-Ugric peoples. In terms of the total number of drawings, 180, the western side of Bisov-Nos is in third place in the region. The dominating images depict waterfowl, which are distinguished by a variety of sizes, shapes and styles. They are often linked with rock cracks, and there is hybridity with other motifs. A thematic peculiarity is the absence of lunar and solar signs. The best known is the triad of giant petroglyphs on the western side of Bisov-Nos with 2 to 3 meter large images of human, catfish and otter. These giants are considered to be the oldest creations in the entire rock art territory. With the advent of Christianity, crosses were hewn on the left hand of the human image and on a swan. The Kladovets cluster includes Cape Kladovets and the mouth of the Cornea River. Stone Age people had lived there as well. A little less than 50 petroglyphs, which are clearly visible in places, are known from the reddish-surfaced rocks of Kladovets. A little east of the cape, the Cornea River flows into Lake Onega. At the river mouth, more than 20 petroglyphs have been found on Cape Koryushkin. Of these, the depictions of 2 bears and a skier on a small rock islet are of the greatest interest. On the kilometer-long shore of Gotsi, the only petroglyph site is situated at its tip. There are 17 relatively modest carvings, the majority of which are waterfowl images. The southernmost sites of the rock art territory are located on 2 islets of Guri. There are more than 60 carvings in 3 sites, 15 of these on the smaller island and 49 on the larger island. Their uniqueness and location on remote islands always offer the viewer a special experience. The best known is the composition of a striped swan, elks, and a solar sign in an egg-like black part of rock at the tip of the Bolshoi Guri. This has been interpreted as a primordial myth of the creation of the world. Another fascinating group of carvings on a smaller island includes all the typical motifs. The location of the rock carvings at the water's edge and the depicted images usually refer to mythical issues. Several composite petroglyphs have a clearly mythological content: an elk swan, an elk boat, an elk carrying the sun, human swans, a whale swan, 2-headed creatures, hypertrophic representation of the human calf, a snake moving in the water stream, the long necks of swans and their association with rock crevices, connection to color anomalies or other special location, etc. In some places, later petroglyphs have been created on top of earlier ones. Analysis of such palimpsests has revealed that the oldest motifs of the petroglyphs of Lake Onega can be considered to be the lunar and solar symbols and elk-like images. Numerous images of waterfowl, anthropomorphs, boats, and depictions of action are of later origin. The discovery of the petroglyphs of Lake Onega dates back more than a century and a half and is related to Tartu. The first 80 petroglyphs were found in 1848 by Konstantin Gruink, a geologist and later professor of mineralogy at the University of Tartu. The research of petroglyphs and finding of new groups has continued to this day. The best-known researchers of Lake Onega rock art are Gustav Hallström, Alexander Linevsky, Vladislav Ravdonikas, Konstantin Lashkin, Yuri Savatayev, Abram Stolyer, Nadezhda Lobanova, Alexander Zolnikov, Vaino Poikalainen, Ernets, and several others. The Estonian Society of Prehistoric Art has been studying the petroglyphs of Lake Onega for more than 3 decades. The first expedition was organized by the Estonian team led by Yolo Kesplane in 1982. From 1983 to 2014, expeditions were led by Väinö Poikalainen. During them, material was collected for maps and plans of the sites. Petroglyphs and their groups were also copied and photographed. In the course of the work, new carvings were also searched for. In Tartu, all the material was processed into graphic files for publishing of maps and plans of the sites, carvings, and carving groups. The multi-layer graphic material was interconnected with the help of GPS coordinates into a coherent whole. The material collected during the expeditions has been used for numerous domestic and international exhibitions. Part of it is permanently on display in the Palm Center of Prehistoric Art. Väinö Poikalainen and Ernets compiled a catalogue of the entire rock art area of Lake Onega. Its first volume on the Valdla region was published in 1998. The second volume was published in 2019 and it dealt with the Koretsky and Peri sites of the Bisavnos region. The third volume contained material from the sites of Bisavnos, Kladovets, Koryushkin, Gotsi, and Giri Islands of the same region and was published in 2021. Soon after the publication of the last part of the English-language catalogue, the petroglyphs of Lake Onega were included, along with those of the White Sea, in the UNESCO World Heritage List on the initiative of the Russian Heritage Institute as the 27th site of rock art as an example of outstanding creativity of the Neolithic Age northern tribes. The closest among such kind of UNESCO World Heritage sites to the Karelian petroglyphs is located in Alta, northern Norway. To the west of it lies the area of Tanum Bronze Age petroglyphs in Sweden. Other UNESCO World Heritage Sites include the southern Kabustan petroglyphs in Azerbaijan and those of Val Camonica in the Italian Alps. The petroglyphs of Lake Onega can also be seen without taking an arduous trip to Karelia. To do this, you need to visit the Palm Center of Prehistoric Art, where you can find a thorough exhibition of copies of petroglyphs and other materials. In addition, in summer the center also functions as a cultural venue where guest exhibitions, thematic workshops, and concerts are organized. Welcome to the Center of Prehistoric Art to explore the wonderful world of rock art.